Scorpio, listen to this with the part of you that already knows the truth, but hasn't had the courage to say it out loud. God is not randomly shaking your life. He is very intentionally moving a person out of your story, and at first it may feel like punishment, like abandonment, like everything is falling apart for no reason. But beneath all the noise, beneath the fear and the confusion, there is a divine reason unfolding with a precision you're only going to understand when you look back and say, if that person had stayed, I would never have become who I am now. You might feel it already, like a quiet pressure under your skin, a strange distance forming, words that don't land the way they used to, moments where you suddenly feel invisible in front of someone who once meant the world to you. Maybe it's a partner, maybe a friend, maybe someone in your family, maybe someone you admired so deeply that you built a piece of your identity around them. On the surface, nothing dramatic may have happened yet. But deep underneath, God is rearranging the spiritual furniture of your life, and this person no longer belongs at the center of your emotional universe. Right now, as you hear this, subtle shifts are already in motion. Conversations that were once easy start to feel heavy. Messages take longer to be answered. The tone changes in small ways that you can't quite name, but your intuition feels like a cold wind. Plans are postponed, priorities quietly rearranged, and a part of you keeps trying to excuse it. They're just busy. They're stressed. It's just a phase. But another part of you, the Scorpio part that sees beneath masks and reads energy like a second language, knows something deeper is being dismantled. God has been watching the way your light bends around this connection. He has seen the nights you stayed awake, replaying every word, trying to figure out what you did wrong. He has watched you shrink your feelings to be less intense, dim your passion to be easier to handle, lower your needs to be less demanding, all because you were afraid of losing the very person who was quietly disconnecting from who you really are. God is not letting that continue. Not because he wants you to suffer, but because he refuses to watch you slowly abandon yourself in the name of a love, a bond, or a loyalty that doesn't truly honor your soul. The separation that is coming, or that has already begun, is not random drama. It is surgery, spiritual surgery. And like any surgery, it may hurt, it may scare you, it may feel violent and unfair while you're on the table. But the part of you God is cutting away isn't your heart. It's the attachment that keeps your heart tied to a place where it cannot grow. Somewhere along the way, Scorpio, you decided that love meant enduring, that loyalty meant staying even when you are slowly dying inside, that being a good person meant tolerating behavior that eats away at your peace, your self-respect, your energy. You started telling yourself that asking for reciprocation was too much, that wanting to be seen and valued was needy, that speaking up about your pain would ruin everything. So you stayed quiet. You tried harder. You gave more. You forgave faster than you healed, and God watched you pouring yourself into a container with cracks in it, a connection that simply cannot hold the magnitude of your spirit. The person he is removing may not be a villain. They might not be evil, cruel, or intentionally malicious. In fact, that might be what confuses you the most. They may have their own wounds, their own limitations, their own fears that prevent them from meeting you at the depth where your soul lives. But just because someone is not a bad person does not mean they are good for your emotional life. Just because someone has shared history with you does not mean they belong in your future. Just because someone once loved you in the only way they knew how does not mean that way is enough for the person you are becoming. God has been trying to get your attention for a while now. Red flags disguised as intuition. Small disappointments that quietly stacked on top of each other. Moments where you heard that inner voice whisper, "This doesn't feel right," and you pushed it aside because you didn't want to start over again. You didn't want to face the void. You didn't want to lose the picture of the future you had secretly built around this person. So the gentle nudges didn't work. The soft whispers weren't enough. Now the universe is using a louder language. Misunderstandings that don't resolve. Emotional distance that doesn't close. Situations that keep exposing how one-sided the effort has become. You may notice that you are the one apologizing more, the one compromising more, the one adjusting more. You may feel like you are always asking for basic things that should flow naturally. Honesty, respect, effort, presence. And each time you bring it up, you are left feeling like you are somehow too much, too intense, or too sensitive. Scorpio, you are not too much. You are simply misplaced. Your depth is not the problem. It's the environment that cannot hold it. God is removing this person not just to take something away, but to give you back pieces of yourself that you scattered along the way. Every time you made yourself smaller so they would feel more comfortable. Every time you bit your tongue when your spirit wanted to speak. Every time you felt something was off and chose silence over confrontation because you were afraid of being alone. Those are the fragments of you that God is gathering as He gently but firmly pulls you away from what no longer serves your soul. Make no mistake, the letting go will sting. You love deeply. When you attach, you don't do it halfway. You weave people into your past, your future, your identity, your dreams. Losing them will not feel like simply deleting a contact. It will feel like pulling threads from the very fabric of your life. Anger may come first. Anger at them for not seeing your worth. Anger at yourself for ignoring the signs. Anger at God for allowing you to love so strongly in a place where the love didn't return with the same intensity. Let yourself feel that anger. It is not a sign that you are unspiritual or ungrateful. It is your soul saying, "I deserved better, and now I know." After the anger, there may be a deep sadness, like a tide pulling you into memories. Their voice, their presence, the way you once felt so safe in something that now feels like it never truly belonged to you. You will grieve the future you thought you had with this person, all the versions of yourself you built in relation to them, the little fantasies your heart painted late at night. This grief is not weakness. It is evidence that you loved with sincerity. And slowly, quietly, like dawn after a long night, clarity will arrive. You will look back and see patterns you couldn't see before, the moments you excused behavior that clearly showed misalignment, the times you rationalized why you felt unseen, the way you overgave to avoid facing your own loneliness. You'll see how you lowered your prices emotionally, offering all of you to someone who only brought a fraction of themselves to the table. This is when the divine reason starts to reveal itself. God is removing this person so you can learn a new way to love, first yourself, then others. A love that doesn't require you to sacrifice your dignity to keep someone from leaving. A love that doesn't ask you to betray your intuition just to maintain a fragile peace. A love where your intensity is not something to be managed, tolerated, or tamed, but something to be welcomed, honored, and cherished. The separation is not just about them. It is about you graduating from an old version of yourself, the version that believed love was proven by suffering, The version that confused drama with connection. The version that thought you had to earn every bit of affection by over-functioning, fixing, saving, understanding. God is calling you into a version of yourself that knows your presence is a blessing, not a bargaining chip. This new version of you will remember that your time, your attention, your empathy, your loyalty are rare currencies, and that you are allowed to be discerning about where you invest them. You will learn to read your own discomfort as holy information instead of condemning yourself for feeling it. You will stop making excuses for people who show you, again and again, through their actions, that they are not willing or able to meet you where your heart lives. Somewhere in the future, there is a person who will not be afraid of your depth, someone who will not ask you to water yourself down to be easier to love, someone who doesn't disappear when you are vulnerable, who doesn't weaponize your honesty, who doesn't see your emotional intensity as a problem to be solved, but as a treasure to be held with care. That person is also being prepared right now. They are learning their own lessons, facing their own shadows, healing their own patterns, so that when your paths finally cross, they don't repeat the mistakes that hurt you before. But they cannot arrive while your hands are still gripping the ghost of someone who is already energetically gone. That is why this removal is necessary. The divine reason isn't just about cutting off what hurts you, it is about making space for what will heal you. In the meantime, you're being invited back to yourself, to sit with your own company without feeling like you're lacking. To rebuild a life that doesn't orbit a single person, but orbits your purpose, your values, your relationship with God and with your own spirit. To remember what you love outside of them, your passions, your dreams, your creativity, your curiosity. To reconnect with the Scorpio gift of transformation, that fierce ability you have to walk through emotional fire and come out on the other side as someone wiser, stronger, more luminous than before. As this process unfolds, you may notice more signs. Feeling restless in conversations that once felt comforting, feeling a growing urge to say what you really feel, noticing how often you justify behavior that you would never accept for someone you love. These are not random mood swings. They are your soul aligning with the decision God has already made on your behalf. He is not asking for your permission to protect you, but He is inviting your cooperation. The more you resist, the more it hurts. The more you cling, the longer the ache lingers. At some point there will be a moment, a fight, a silent drift, a sudden realization, a final straw, where something inside you quietly says, "This is it." You may not scream. You may not slam doors. You may simply stop chasing, stop explaining, stop negotiating your worth. That quiet decision will be the moment your spirit finally agrees with what heaven has been orchestrating all along. And Scorpio, when that moment comes, it doesn't mean you have failed. It doesn't mean you are unlovable. It doesn't mean you are destined to be alone. It means you are finally ready to love yourself at least as fiercely as you have loved others. Somewhere down this path, perhaps months or years from now, you may look back on this person with a softness in your heart, not because you want them back, but because you understand the role they played. They were a chapter, not the whole book. They were a teacher, not a life sentence. They were the mirror that showed you where you were abandoning yourself, and their exit created the opening through which real love will eventually walk in. And as you sit in that future moment, perhaps with someone who truly sees you, or perhaps alone but deeply at peace with yourself, you will whisper, maybe for the first time with full sincerity, "God, thank you for removing what I begged you to let me keep." This message is not here to curse anyone, to label them as the villain, or to dictate what must happen in your life. It is a story, a spiritual reflection, a mirror held up to your heart so you can see more clearly what may already be shifting below the surface. It is a possibility, a path your soul might recognize if it is meant for you. If it resonates, if something in you aches in that strangely relieved way, like truth finally finding words, then take the parts that feel right and sit with them in prayer, in journaling, in honest conversation with yourself. If it does not resonate, let it drift past you like a passing cloud, because not every message is for every Scorpio, and not every season holds the same lesson. What you are hearing is not a guarantee of events, not professional advice, not a command telling you what to do with your relationships. It is an invitation to listen more deeply to your own intuition, to honor your feelings instead of dismissing them, to remember that God often speaks through subtle signs and inner knowing long before any external change arrives. You are the guardian of your choices, the author of your boundaries, the steward of your healing. God is removing someone from your life for a divine reason, but He is also placing incredible power in your hands, the power to say no to what drains you, yes to what nourishes you, and I am enough to the mirror even when no one else is standing beside you. Trust that what leaves now is not meant to define your worth, and what stays or arrives later will be aligned with the version of you who finally understands it.